Now, representatives from Fujitsu will face public questions again today about the company's role in the Post Office Horizon IT scandal, which saw hundreds of sub-postmasters falsely accused of theft and fraud.
Well, it comes after a senior executive from the Japanese firm addressed a committee of MPs for the first time yesterday and apologised for the tech giant's involvement.
Fujitsu would like to apologise for our part in this appalling miscarriage of justice. We were involved from the very start. We did have bugs and errors in the system, and we did help the Post Office in their prosecutions of the sub-postmasters. For that, we are truly sorry.
Well, the committee also heard from Nick Reed, who took charge of the Post Office in September 2019. He insisted the organisation has drastically changed and said he would apologise personally to the victims.
What I've said to victims is, and I've been very explicit about this over the last couple of years, that if there is an opportunity for any form of redress, is there some form of justice, some form of apology that I can do on a personal level, I'm very, very willing to do it. The trauma that individuals have experienced can, in certain instances, be at least reduced or slightly reduced when they have an opportunity to speak to the head of the organisation that ultimately may well have been responsible for what they have been through.
We're joined here in the studio now by former postmistress Sally Stringer and Carl Flinders, a journalist at Computer Weekly, who's been following the story. Sally, first of all, it's tricky for you to watch all of that yesterday, I know.
Yes, it was, and thank you for having me back again. It was difficult. It was difficult on two aspects. Nick Reed, well, you know, that man is beyond redemption as far as I'm concerned. They're not doing all they can to help the inquiry. They're obstructing it in every footstep that they can possibly make. And the chap from Fujitsu, well, he wasn't particularly convincing either. You know,
said sorry?
They said sorry, but so have they all. And have they got any action from it? No. We've got dates from the government of the 7th of August this year. Sunak says end of the year, but hasn't specified which year. It would be quite useful to know which year he's talking about. Fujitsu are talking about end of the inquiry. Well, which year again? You know, it's being delayed by the Post Office with a new set of lawyers. It's delayed for non-disclosure. It's delayed because nobody's telling the truth. And corporate amnesia is a serious disease within the whole set of them. Fujitsu, Post Office, they've all got corporate amnesia. And it's amazing that you can look at an email and not understand who you sent it to or remember.
Carl, I want to bring you in here because Sally's touching upon it there. This sense that there are so many layers to this, there is so much culpability in different areas, that although there have been apologies, ultimately nobody knows where the book will stop and where and when heads will roll.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the inquiry now has been going on for 2 years almost, and the findings within that are just astonishing. I mean, people initially thought it was, I mean, Fujitsu, they talk about it being an IT scandal, but the more it's gone on, the more it's just become a sort of a corporate scandal. The government are involved, dating back to the 90s. So to find out who is to blame is very difficult.
And when you talk to people who've been affected by this miscarriage of justice, how much does that absence of culpability of the book stopping compound the misery?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, Nick Reed, I mean, he talks about, you know, he apologises, he talks about justice, but he can't even answer a question, it seems. And he's hiding behind the inquiry. Fujitsu I've been writing about this for 14 years, and Fujitsu have never really spoken up apart from saying no comment, and they've hidden behind the customer. We can't talk because it's the post office who should talk, and the post office obviously were denying everything. But obviously it comes out, and it's interesting because in the inquiry there has been some less senior Fujitsu people questioned already, and some interesting things have come out. Today, for example, in the inquiry, there's John Simkin, who was a senior person in the help desk. That's where people call when they're having problems. And he when he was last appeared, He talked about how some of his staff were sort of pressured into giving evidence in court against sub-postmasters. So we have found things out through this, but at the senior level, they've said nothing. I think Paul Patterson, that was the first time a senior director had spoken out, which was welcomed, and obviously them contributing to the cost is also welcomed, but it's taken a drama to get to this stage. All the way they've been dragged kicking and screaming by the sub-postmasters, Alan Bates, the GFSA and others, journalists, lawyers supporting the sub-postmasters, but they've not done it willingly, and I think they might start to do it. I think they're not doing it willingly now. It's because of public pressure.
Well, let's just remind ourselves of a real moment, because Sally, you questioned the Post Office Minister, Kevin Hollinrake, last week over Fujitsu and their responsibility. Let's just remind ourselves of that moment.
Fujitsu seem to have managed to accumulate substantial contracts from the governments over the years. And I believe that they should be held responsible for some of the compensation. It'll ease government coffers a little bit.
So, what progress since then, Sally?
Well, the Fujitsu CEO here said sorry. He said he's assisting the inquiry. Well, yes. Not much else. They've half sort of promised some compensation to the parliamentarians yesterday, who give Parliament inquiry their due. They grilled them yesterday. They grilled them well. And they've given them a set of criteria that they need to come out with.
Just explain to us, this next section that we're talking about now is very much about compensation and how you get compensation. How challenging is it? What do you have to do to claim your compensation?
Well, I'm fortunate that I've got lawyers. I'm with Howe & Co in London. I'm one of the 555. And they have been extraordinarily compassionate about how they've dealt with this. You know, we've done the medical records, we've done the psychiatrists, it's done with the with the accountants now. I mean, it is, and that's been going for 18 months. 40 days is nonsense from this minister. Yeah, it's absolute nonsense. There needs to be an increase in that, and Sunak announced, 75k. He didn't give any detail. It would be quite nice for the people handling these claims to know the detail, so that the postmasters can know the detail, because you're not going to sign a piece of paper without knowing the detail. And for the ones that were convicted, that's going to be a laboriously long process, because the judicial system needs to change. I understand that. Thank God they're doing that, and they're changing the law to help those people. But we wait. I sort of said in a letter to somebody, well, we might all be pushing up daisies soon by the time they get round to this, but we could all come back and haunt them. So, we're going to have a bit of fun with that. But, there needs to be a push forward. And I know it's an election year, and I know they're all touting for votes. And I do believe that the public are behind us 100%. I've been amazed how wonderful people have been. And we need to go forward with that. Ask your MP. What are they doing about the post office? Because most of them have not done anything about it at all yet. So, challenge to the MPs, you're going to have a bit of work to do in the next few weeks.
Carl, Sally's joking about it there, saying some of them will be pushing up the daisies, but it's true that some of the victims have passed away in the time that's elapsed between this taking place and between them seeing justice. How much longer can they wait?
Well, they shouldn't have to wait any longer. James Arbuthnot, Conservative peer, said yesterday in the meeting that it should take weeks, some might take months, but it should definitely not take a year. But the whole thing is sort of mired in red tape, and a lot of the people feel like they're going through their investigation all over again, having to provide documents, and it's just not fair, them having to relive this. And it's unsurprising that there's many people who have not yet come forward.
Carl, thank you.
Could I just say a huge thank you to Carl for the work that you did in 2009. We heard about it in little rural post offices. Nobody believed much about it, but there were a few, the 555, that did follow it through. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you did. It's really helped.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's lovely to hear. Carl, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And as Sally said, thank you for your investigative work, and thank you. Best of luck with the next chapter.
Thank you.